Hello, scholars. Appreciate y'all hanging in here the first few weeks of class here. Another lecture. This lecture is going to be for the next quiz here. I haven't posted it yet, and I'm going to give you more time because I posted the second quiz late. And then I have to go back. I know some people had questions about the technology, so I still have to go back and address some of those questions. Some people had problems submitting assignments. Not a lot of you, but I think there was a couple questions some people had. This is chapter 4, Prejudice and Discrimination. Prejudice is a word that we hear a lot, as well as discrimination. Now, make sure you understand the lectures come from Censor and D'Angelo, and the lectures are a way for me to go in and just teach the book or teach the concepts better, so that as you're reading it, you can see the information, twice, or sometime a third time I'll hit the information up, or you'll see it in another format. But the lectures are going to be helping you with the quiz. If you notice from chapter 4, they use a common saying, quote, this is on page 50, "I was never taught to judge a book by its cover." And that's something a lot of us say when somebody brings up the idea of prejudice. Nobody wants to, for the most part, think of being thought of as a bigot or being prejudiced. And that's one of the defenses that we say. But the book delves into this notion of prejudice and discrimination. The chapter explains two key interrelated terms, prejudice and discrimination. The book explains that prejudice, or Censor and D'Angelo, I should say, they explain that prejudice and discrimination cannot be avoided. We all hold prejudices, and we all discriminate based on our prejudices. We argue that the first step, this is what they say in the text here, they argue that the first step in minimizing discrimination is to be able to identify rather than deny our prejudices. So what I don't want us to have the idea is, well, since we're all prejudiced, why do we focus on race? Why do we focus on sexism? Because they are one of the social ills. They're the primary social ills in our society. Just because we all have prejudices doesn't mean we discredit conversations about race, or that we discredit conversations about sexism. Let me move forward here. I don't want to, it's my endeavor to shorten these when I can. This is going to be a short PowerPoint, so I'm only hitting the points here. Prejudice is learned prejudgment towards social others. It refers to internal thoughts, feelings, and attitudes, and assumptions based on the groups to which they belong. The book deals a lot with, in this particular chapter, they talk about homosexuality. A gay male, a gay teacher, they give us, or a presumed gay teacher, they give us the narrative on page 50, that you're on a hiring committee to identify the best candidate, and one of the candidates for the elementary teacher position is a male, and people assume that he's gay because he wants to be an elementary teacher, or otherwise people are kind of creeped out about it, that he must be some type of weirdo. But those are based on prejudices and the idea that teachers are supposed to be women in the elementary level. So I think that's a very interesting story to bring out. Prejudice can be either positive or negative. So, for example, or stereotypes can be either positive or negative, I should say, but they always end up being negative. Let me bring that out a little bit more. So the idea that the stereotype that Asians are intelligent, or they all are piano virtuosos. And even though that seems positive, there's the danger of placing unrealistic expectations on Asians, and that's based on disproven science anyway. That just because a person is from a certain race or nationality or ethnicity, they are somehow good at something. Um, but prejudice also manifests in attitudes about an individual, but it's based on our ideas about the group to which that individual belongs. And often we're taught these ideas by our parents or grandparents or by our relatives. Um, Discrimination, multiple meanings. So what they do in the text here in chapter 4, they differentiate between discrimination and prejudice. But there's multiple meanings. Social justice studies refer to actions based on prejudice towards social others. So when you act upon your prejudice, so for example, if you are prejudiced against an African American person and your sister comes home dating an African American male, and you say, "Oh, that's disgusting. That's not natural. That's not God's way," then you are acting upon your prejudices. You already had a prejudice against black folks, and then when your relative dates a person of color, a black person, then you are and you act upon that rudely. You're discriminating. Or if you're a teacher, for my education majors, you're a teacher, you have an African American group of African American students in your class, and they're well behaved, but you automatically begin to be harder on them because of your own negative understanding or negative experiences with black folks, your own preconceived prejudices, then and you act upon that in a mean way. You treat them mean in a bad way. You are discriminating. Or if you think that females are not as intelligent as males, and you meet a blonde woman and you treat her as if she's not intelligent, you are acting upon your prejudices, and therefore you're discriminating. How we think about groups of people determines how we act toward them. How you think about groups of people determines how you act toward them. So, for example, you may have grew up in a home where people drop the N-word left and right, especially my folks from rural Kentucky. You may have grown up in a household where people are not very kind to black folks, and they call them thugs. They say they're all thugs and rappers, and they cause trouble. They're criminals, and they're actually getting their ideas from television because, by and large, African Americans are peaceful people. But there are good white folks, there are bad white folks, there are good black folks, there are good bad black folks, and to say that the whole race is criminals and that black males are inherently violent is racial prejudice. You are discriminating when you act upon that prejudice. So I want you, as you listen to these lectures and you get upset, you think of defenses and all these kinds of things, I want you to challenge yourself and try to grow. So our prejudice towards others leads our thoughts. They organize our values. What's a value? Your sense of right and wrong. Influences our actions. When we don't reflect on these behaviors and act on our prejudice, we are discriminating. I mentioned something about homosexuality before, about the gay teacher or the gay candidate, I want to say, in our story from page 50. Many people in the room, and I always say this, and I'll be candid, many folks in the room come from a Christian background, and they come from Catholicism, and many Christian traditions, they teach that homosexuality is a sin, and so many religious people in classes like this, they have sort of a conundrum because the book calls it discrimination when people look at homosexuality in a certain way. And so I know that I just want to acknowledge that I know folks are trying to reconcile that, but regardless of where your religious stand is you should not discriminate or treat anybody badly because of who they are, especially in schools when you have bullying. A lot of bullying is perpetuated against perpetrated. I'm getting my P words mixed up. Perpetrated against gay and lesbian folks, and the highest suicide rates are among gay and lesbian, the gay community. And so it's an issue. And so, regardless of what your religious values are, it's not good to discriminate against anybody because of who they are. So, I want to say that, and I always want to say that. When we don't reflect influences our actions, in keeping what I just said, discrimination influences your action, how you treat people. The hate groups that are on the rise that want to beat up black folks and people of color, they are acting upon their actions. When we don't reflect on these behaviors and act on our prejudice, we are discriminating. Okay. All humans have prejudice and discrimination. Again, that doesn't mean that the social justice fight is futile. I don't want anybody saying we all have prejudices anyway, so being prejudiced against a left-hander is just as bad as being prejudiced, racial prejudice. It's not, because left-handers were never systematically lynched, like the black community, and terrorized for hundreds of years. Left-handers weren't necessarily denied jobs systematically like women have been, and made and paid less. The glass ceiling, sexism. So when people begin to say, "Well, I'm discriminated every day because I'm white," no, you're not. Your ancestors were never slaves. Okay, you can say, "Well, there were white slaves too." That's different. That's different. The African American slave experience was unique to the world, and it began in 1619. At least, even in this country, but even before that, in other parts of the Americas, African American folks were raped. Their families were raped and torn apart for years and years and years and years. And then after slavery was abolished, there was Jim Crow and discrimination in the South and in the North as well, and systematic discrimination, lynchings, and so the European American. Yes, you might experience. You may work at a restaurant where there's predominantly black, or your job, and your people are discriminating against you because of your color, but that's different from racial prejudice that was perpetuated against the Jews, for example, or African Americans. Okay, you get what I'm saying. How do we challenge our prejudice to get rid of discrimination? By challenging the social segregation that's built into the culture. The more educated we become about people who are different from us, and the more relationships we build with them, the more likely we are to have constructive responses when interacting with other members of their group. So that's a fancy way of saying the best way to get rid of to challenge racial prejudice is to my kids are in the background talking. The best way to get rid of prejudice is to get to know people different from yourself. We can take classes like this all day long, but get out and meet somebody that's African American, that's Hispanic, that's from another culture. We have a lot of Saudis on our campus here at Northern Kentucky University. The best way to break down prejudice is to get to know those folks and build a relationship with them. You'll see that they're human just like you. This particular slide, I wanted to talk about Remember the Titans because the movie deals with racial unity and racial harmony. And so while we celebrate difference in a good way, you might talk about your German heritage, your Irish heritage, your Scottish heritage, your Native American heritage, and German food, Italian food, ritual dancing, the geography of Germany. You celebrate Germanness. And one can celebrate African American culture, all of the accomplishments, Black History Month. That's celebrating difference. That's a good thing. Because when we think about the notion of the melting pot, we want to move beyond that. We always heard of the American melting pot. But a better model is the salad bowl or the stew. So you can have a bowl of salad, and the whole bowl is called a salad, but a salad is made up of different good things that make it a salad. Tomatoes, lettuce, croutons, vinaigrette dressing, onions. Some people like onions. Lettuce, of course. Green peppers, bell peppers, olives, whatever you like in your salad. Sometimes a touch of pepper. That all makes up the salad. But the pepper is different from the lettuce. And the tomato is different from the cucumber. But they all are good things alone. And so we can celebrate the difference of the vegetables in the same way that we can celebrate the difference of the different races in the United States. But at the same time, we all can be Americans. And I think Remember the Titans, if you haven't seen Remember the Titans, go ahead and watch it. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's by Disney, and it's a good feel-good sports movie. And it deals with racial prejudice in the height of the integration period, the civil rights movement, and how a team came together. It's based on a true story, how a team came together in spite of racial tension. And I included a clip here. It's an inspirational clip that talks about the importance of racial unity. So check it out. So I'm going to sign off here. I hope you enjoyed it, had a chance to enjoy the talk. And until next time, have a good day.